Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Ben, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Good to see you. And thanks again for accepting the invitation. A couple things I want to talk to you about. So obviously you're wearing a Padres shirt in my studio.
Yeah.
And he made a comment off air about me being an A's fan. I guess that's part of my online persona anyways, but we were talking some baseball. But for the record, I mean, are you adjusting to pandemic baseball?
I mean, as best I can. I haven't watched any. I don't know that I'm missing a whole lot as a Pirate fan. I don't know. I mean, it's good to have, something, I guess, to take my mind off everything for a minute. But yeah, it's can also add to the frustration just by being a Pirates fan.
He went like, already struggling to hold interest, and now you throw a pandemic on top of it.
Yeah.
Well, the city had a great chance to get some good baseball in because Toronto, not great baseball, but better baseball anyways. Toronto was supposedly going to play here.
Yeah, Vlad Guerrero Jr. would have been fun to watch.
Absolutely. But then again, we can't go down anyways.
Right.
It's like the biggest tease imaginable if you dig the game.
Yeah, you could stand outside the right field, rotunda or whatever, on the Riverwalk and try to catch a ball maybe, but...
I know. What do you think about many cities? I think it actually might have started in Oakland, the idea anyways, of the cardboard cutouts. Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen them. I saw they put a Bartman one in Chicago. That's been my best. The best joke
so you
I've
haven't seen the Astros mascot one with the trash can? I'm a little sore about that. They play in the same division as my team does. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
the Astros. That was great though. But you haven't watched any games yet?
No, not yet. I actually play in a men's league, so we've been playing baseball, and I feel like we have a better COVID policy going on now than the major leagues do.
Probably.
Yeah. So nobody's gotten sick in our league yet. So
that's definitely a better. Definitely a better record than the pros have at the moment.
We don't have any Florida teams though, so
we're going to get through this in terms of the baseball season. We're going to make it through the end of the season before any major disruptions in this abbreviated 60-game season.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'd probably put it at even money that it gets washed out, but I don't know. Hopefully it gets through, and I don't know, a small market team that wouldn't normally wins, and there's an asterisk next to it, and everybody's just pissed off about it.
All the historians especially, right?
Yeah. I mean, as long as the players can stay healthy, I guess is the big thing.
No question. And the other thing too, which is really interesting, is that because of the policy, I think if they test positive, they have to quarantine for 14 days. So think about what could happen down the stretch here, and how a team that remains healthy but probably not that talented might be the odds-on favorite to win the darn thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see realistically somebody I don't know, Milwaukee or Minnesota, or maybe Detroit. I think is still pretty bad.
Yeah,
but,
they're bad.
Some Rust Belt team run away with it.
Especially because it probably was the big cities teams that probably pushed to play anyways.
Yeah, I mean, they have the most revenue, I guess, to lose by not playing. But, I guess the Red Sox and the Yankees kind of dictate most major league policies anyway.
Yeah.
But
the Dodgers.
Oh, yeah.
The LA, especially in MLB, it seems like the Yankees, the Dodgers. And Chicago, to a good degree, a lot of money out there, too. My friend, you got to tell me about this book.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm reading it now. I got my wife reading it as well. She read it out of curiosity because I don't know if she saw my face sitting there reading it, and I don't know if it was a combination of laughter and a combination astonishment. I don't know, but all I know is that she now has it too. So I don't even know where to begin with this because it just starts out with a smack in the face.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate that. I'll certainly take laughter and astonishment as reactions to the book. Yeah, I mean, I started writing that in like undergrad at Pitt in like 2006, I think.
Okay.
And, it was my undergrad thesis, and it wasn't very good then. And then I went to grad school. I went to grad school in 09. Yeah, 08 or 09, whatever. Okay. I graduated in 11, so I don't know when I would have started 2 years earlier than that. I took the work I had to grad school and basically wrote it there at Chatham. And then it took another 6 years of editing and submissions to get it done. But
6 years. Wow.
Yeah, it's been kind of a grind. I was just, happy to be finished with it.
Mm-hmm. It's like having another kid.
Yeah. Similar. I mean, don't tell my daughter that, but it's similar.
Well, I noticed I said another, right?
Right.
Sorry.
Appreciate it.
But that's kind of an author vernacular, right? Because I always hear the story when you finally get to publishing, and for women, they invariably say, not right or wrong. If they do this, they go, "Oh my gosh, you're finally getting published. It's like giving birth." And I've had every female author tell me that is just the worst analogy imaginable.
Yeah, I mean,
where'd you go with that, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Not that you can speak of that particular, right?
Yeah, it was. I will say that it was. It gave me insight into the process, and it just, it was almost just completely disillusioning. But I found a good publisher, and I had a great editor in Ryan Rivas at Burrow Press, and I feel like the book's good. It's and hopefully I can like springboard it into like more money for my next book. So I mean, I don't know. I think like most people want to know like how like true. I feel like a lot of fiction writers get asked like, did that really happen?
Mm-hmm. Of course. Well, talk about the character.
Yeah.
Talk about Ronald Reagan Middleton. Talk about that character.
Yeah.
And the development of that character, if you will.
Ronald Reagan Middleton. I mean, I wanted to take sort of like the worst aspects of my personality, like the most like impulsive, like drug addled, like just like to draw from that experience, and create a character kind of based off that would be like interesting and active, right? Because I'm not a very like, I'm pretty mellow normally, right? Like and to sort of like use him as like take those aspects of myself but put it onto a character that would make horrible decisions over and over again to like create like a compelling story, right? And I wanted to deal with like class issues a little bit and privilege, so I thought like naming him Ronald Reagan Middleton was sort of a good vehicle for that, right? To like kind of like definitely describe his family life. Like his parents love Ronald Reagan so much that they named their kid that, and that allowed me to kind of get into some family dynamics, allowed me to write some, I think, pretty spectacular puns throughout the book. But so I don't know. I mean, some of it was like, I thought it would be funny to name him that, but then starting it off with like sort of a vehicle for my like bad personality traits, and then developing him from there into like a unique character. Like I have I mean, I don't like, I'm sober now and I don't get high or anything anymore, and that's like the best thing for me. So but it wasn't always that way, right? So I wanted to like be able to use some of those bad experiences in the book, because I feel like it's story worthy, right? There's a lot of inherent conflict in those things, and that's what I think and this isn't like a revolutionary belief about fiction and storytelling, but the more conflict, the more interesting it is. So to be able to use some of that to tell a story was kind of fun, but there's really like, I don't know, maybe like one instance of a one-to-one experience that I actually had in there, and it's I don't even remember what it is at this point, but
right. How much would you say generally? How the average person? We talked about this a little off camera too. The average person that reads these kind of very engaging writings, naturally they're fiction, but the brain goes right to the core of it. How much of that was reality? I mean, that has to be the central focus that most readers will ask right away with any work of fiction, I would imagine, but certainly with something that's got a lot of conflict in it, because that's just the human nature itself.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the things I wanted to like satirize in the book too, because it's like based off of, it's I use the structure, framing it as like this kid's actual memoir, that may or may not even, there's an unreliable narrator, right? So I use that, and then I, set part of it in reality television, which is obviously like not really real.
You don't say.
Right. And I think, when I started writing it, that was based off of like the popularity of like fucking like Road Rules.
Got it.
Like way like old school reality TV. Real World.
Mm-hmm. That goes back a ways.
Yeah. And also like the, then as I kept writing like the really fucked up ones with like hoarders, like the ones that are like pretty like exploitative of people with like these horrible like mental health and drug addiction problems. I forget what the other ones are named, but like to try to poke fun at that and to have it be like kind of like a meta text, that was a fun part of it for me, was like setting all that up. The next book I write, it's going to just be like a much more straightforward narrative without all the endnotes and stuff.
I read that was going to be nonfiction. Is that still true?
Yeah, I got, I just finished editing an anthology for Belt Publishing, which is going to come out in March. And that's just a book of like other Pittsburgh authors, and that's all like essays and poetry, but right. I'm really excited about that. I have a book under contract with Belt that's going to come out after that, about labor unions and organizing my workplace, as a contractor at Google. So I'm working on that. And then I have another manuscript that's a memoir that I've written about being a single dad and my daughter's late mother's drug addiction and how that affected us for the first 10 years of our life. That was a drag.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, not good. So,
did you think that when you started to write, did you think, number one, that it would end up something like it did? Did you visualize that, or did it really have to reveal itself as it unfolded?
A little bit of both. Like, I wanted it to be like a fake memoir. Again, this is going like way back to like the Million Little Pieces book, where that guy was like,
I remember. I just had a conversation with someone about that. Yeah. It ended up being it was all fiction.
Yeah. And then that guy got paid like a ton of money.
That was a big book.
Yeah.
Oprah, the whole Oprah scene. And it was, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember.
So like that was going on. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just write like a fiction story framed as a real drug addict's memoir.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of how it started. And then I was like, well, maybe there's this crazy drug in the book that they give to everybody, So that was like the Ned Vidal thing. Right. And then I wrote like a commercial, because there's all these like those crazy ass, drug pharmaceutical commercials with all the side effects and everything, and the the graphics. So I wrote one of those, and so that was like the first like TV type stuff I did. So
Right.
so that was kind of where it started, and then it sort of went from there about having it be like, the like discovered manuscripts, and then adding in the narrator, Swanger. That was a fun character to write.
Didn't he initially pretended to be the person who took the place of the office he moved into?
Yeah.
And that was so matter of factly presented in the book. I had to stop and reread that, going, "Wait a second."
Yeah, it was, some of it, like, I'm like, I hope this is like as clear as I want it to be to the reader, because it makes sense in my head, but I just had to go over it a bunch of times to make sure like all that stuff came across pretty directly.
We'll talk about that for a second. So that goes to I guess to your style to a degree, but that also goes to have forethought of how is this going to play out to the quote unquote average reader. But how do you even determine what the average reader is for this particular piece? I mean, and the average reader for this work would probably be a hell of a lot different than the average reader for author X and author Z and so forth, right? Do you think about where your audience is at for this?
I mean, I don't. Sometimes that gets me in trouble when I try to think too much about like, is this going to be appealing to, like, who's going to want to read this? I think it's better for me to just like try to write the book that I want to write as best as I can, and to tell a compelling story that is as layered with conflict. And I try to write in scene. I find that helps me a lot to like keep things in scene, right?
Like,
And
what does that mean exactly?
just to have it be like not just like summarized, to show, I guess, as much as I can, and have it be active, have the characters like doing as much shit as possible, as dramatic as possible, and to like propel the plot through action, that makes sense for the character. That's like, I mean, that's what I try to do. And I think, like as much as there's all the like kind of decorative stuff going on in this book, I feel like that's like the heart of it. It's like this kid trying to like just get his shit together is like the narrative. And I feel like that's what a reader will latch onto, right? It's like, is this going to work out for Ronald Reagan, Middleton, and Jackie, and his buddies in North Carolina? And so I try not to think about that, and I try to be clear, right? And having a couple readers that I trust is kind of where I go for that,
Okay.
So a couple people in grad school were super helpful, and then a couple people out of grad school were really helpful with that.
How do you do the character development? Because it's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
Because only because it gets broken. Some writers will break it down. I mean, really get into the nitnoid and identify, poster boards a whole bit. Some just let it evolve and actually tailor the character to the story. The story drives the character development.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a little of both for me. Like, I try to think of a situation of, like a problem that needs to be solved by a character, and like put them in that situation, right? So, initially it was Ronald Reagan, like, gets arrested and has to go to rehab, and, and then gets put on TV. So it's like, how is he going to, navigate this situation, and kind of going from there. And then, I feel like if I get to a point where like nothing's happening in the book, then I have to change something about the character, or to have them respond to something, or sometimes it's the other way. I need to have something happen to them to have them respond in the right way. And I try to just be like as flexible about that stuff as possible. I don't, I just want the story to be good, and I have to like let myself kind of be surprised, you know, and not be too like rigid about what the character is, because I get to decide, right? Like it's not it's my character.
Right.
Like I can make them do whatever I want as long as it's interesting, and you know,
It's the freedom of fiction, right?
yeah, it's great. Yeah, I can't wait. It's like I can't wait to get back to writing fiction. Although again, like nothing's stopping me from doing that other than I have, you know, deadlines. And
Yeah, absolutely. No, but you made a 90-degree turn to go to nonfiction, right? It sounds like you're almost writing I won't say a manual or a textbook, but it sounds like you're writing a complete essay or book about. You said implementing unionization at Google. Is that right?
Yeah, it's I was one of like the first 3 workers at HCL who reached out and started the organizing committee there.
Right.
And we won our vote with USW.
Right.
So now we get to negotiate for, you know, better wages and workplace conditions, which, you know, it's been extremely helpful now to have that kind of workplace solidarity and the backing of USW now that there's a pandemic going on and we don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, and that was just kind of something that, like, you know, as I was doing it, I'm like, you know, it seemed like it was story worthy, because there's like a natural like progression of problems that need to be solved, needed to be solved by myself and the other organizers to you know, to win this vote and to get the chance to try to negotiate. It's like almost like a step-by-step process. It's just a natural arc to it.
Right.
And it seemed, you know, and I know Ann Trebek from Belt through like I wrote an essay about heroin, and it was in one of their anthologies, and we, like, you know, I toured with her. It was fun. We went to like Buffalo and Philly and Cleveland, a few other places to read, to promote this anthology. And it just seemed like, you know, this, like the Rust Belt book about labor would be a great fit for that press. It's, you know, it's employee owned and operated. So, you know, it's felt like a right fit, and I queried Ann, and she was like, yeah, that sounds great, write it. So
differences besides the obvious between fiction and nonfiction from the writer's standpoint. When we hear us appreciators of writing, when we hear fact checking, obviously we would imagine fact checking is extremely important for nonfiction works, of course. But is fact checking at times also a part of the fiction process too, depending on if you're using real world scenarios or entities to create the work of fiction? Does that make any sense? Am I coming across right? If you're blending your fictional story into a real world scenario. Yeah,
I mean, I had to, like, you know, look up how like Narcan worked, and stuff like that, you know, and some other. I did some research on how reality TV scripts came about, so I got that part right. Like, I wanted parts of it to be accurate. And my buddy Jeff, who I went to high school with, who, this poor guy, had his wedding. He's had his wedding postponed like twice. We're hoping for October. I can't wait to go to New York to Jeff's wedding. But anyway, he, like, you know, worked on some reality TV shows, and I was like, hey, how do they write the scripts? How do they like develop it? What's the deal with that? And he helped me out. So, you know, that was good.
Reality television. Every time I hear that now,
yeah,
I want to cringe, because I got this crazy memory of Paul Stanley looking across the table at me and saying, Eric, there's reality and there's television.
Right.
I don't know what my partner's doing over there, because I guess Gene Simmons had one. During the time you wrote this book, I think he had a reality show. But he was very adamant to me. He goes, listen to me. He goes, there's reality and there's television. Don't mix the two.
Right.
Because his standpoint was there's no such thing.
Oh, yeah.
You believe that?
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
a natural blend to written work there, obviously.
yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like, I don't know. This is one of those silences.
Well,
to
no,
edit
no,
out.
some you're good. My question would be if writers are creating storylines and so forth for reality television shows, you've now blended.
Oh yeah,
You've really become a work of fiction with a reality basis.
yeah. It's like you get all the footage and you cut it down and you take the parts out with the most conflict and you put them on TV, and then that's the representation.
And your buddy worked on a show.
Yeah,
So he obviously knew how it was constructed.
Yeah. He's like, there's all this, all the footage, and then they like make a script from it and then edit it based off that script. I don't know if that's still the way they do it, but that's how they did it in like the early to mid aughts. So,
You think the Real World was done that way when MTV brought that in I think I want to say early to mid 90s?
I don't know. That'd be something to find out, though. I mean, it's like part of it was I needed a reason to have like the writing, in script form. I guess I could have done that a couple different ways. I've read books that deal with that differently, but I was like, I want there to be like a script, and I wanted to contrast that script with like what was actually going on,
Right.
in Ronald Reagan's life at that point. But it's.
Well, it's a good
I have
point
no
you raised, though.
idea. Yeah.
No, but it's a good point you raised in regards to what you want to incorporate in that story and getting where you need to get facts correct. You go get
Right.
them.
Yeah, for sure.
So science fiction folks just got it completely fucking easy. They can write whatever the hell they want. I mean, it's just there's no fact checking going on there whatsoever because there's no facts to check.
Right. I mean, on one hand, but I guess it depends on the kind of science fiction. If they're trying to like have the science work, then they gotta.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So they're sitting in a room with a bunch of theoretical physicists, right?
Yeah, I would imagine that's exactly how it goes.
I can't imagine Star Wars was created that way.
No,
but I can see other like Oblivion and some of the other. Do you like that stuff?
Yeah, I do. I've been drawn a lot more to science fiction and like dystopian stuff. And
Are we
like,
living that now?
Yeah,
Or we're headed down that dark tunnel.
Yeah, I just finished reading a Parable of the Sower, and it's like, man, we're 20. It's like starts in like 2030 or something, and I'm like, maybe.
It's a little early, maybe. We were getting there a little early.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by how long that process, the time that you took to write that, because I think of my life in like a 5 or 7 year period, because that was about how long it took to complete. Is that about right?
Yeah. It and then the editing, like it. I mean, part of it was I had to work, and and I had a kid, and I had to parent and stuff. And it's just so much. Mm-hmm. It's just really hard for me to find time.
Life.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle, and it's been tough now. Even being stuck inside to be like. I still, I have to work. I have a 40-hour-a-week job, and I have, a couple part-time jobs that I do, and I can do it all remote. And I'm super grateful that I'm still making money, and I'm still employed. But it sucks to have to work like, 55 hours a week and weave in the time to, write another book. Like it's frustrating.
That time frame that you took to create, let's leave the editing out for the moment, although the editing is a huge part of this, but the creative part of it. So the average reader like myself and the viewer of this show or the downloader of our show is listening to this, and they're immediately thinking about their own life and like, wow, 5-7 years, I don't know if I could stay married to a concept for 5 or 7 years. We get married to people, relationships last, but it's a relationship with that work, and that's 5 to 7 years. In that time frame, there had to be countless revisions. How many times did you go back and revisit it and make changes, or did you pretty much stick to the original idea from start to finish?
I mean, there were a couple pretty big changes, and a couple pretty big cuts of just, I mean, I think I cut like, I don't know, 75 pages that were just like not working. It was just like this whole, it's like the middle third. It's like what is going on? Like nothing is happening. Like this just has to go. So I cut a bunch of like really like static shit.
Okay.
Wrote some better stuff, or what I thought was better, and so there's maybe like 2 like pretty big revisions before I worked on it like actually with an editor, and in the meantime too, like I wrote a bunch of like stories and stuff, and published some other things, so like I had to step away from it for a while, a couple times, but going back to it, I just didn't want it to be like my novel in a drawer, I was like, I spent so much time on this, I wanted to see the light of day, and I just kept at it, and it got picked up eventually,
What do you think we're going to see out of this pandemic once, and I dare to say the word, once we get through it, because life may look different on the other end, or it could be a little blip in history, and 18 months from now, once it passes, or we get through it, or we learn to live with it, we don't think about it anymore, and life just goes on. In terms of your field, in terms of authors and creative folk and creative writers, what do you think this has done to your industry, if anything?
I mean, I would venture to guess that it's like, it's hurt a lot of smaller places that couldn't get those loans. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like those went to a lot of, I don't know, companies that might not have needed the money quite as bad as some.
It's starting to sound like it now in the news.
Yeah. I feel like it's like, the saying, when there's blood in the street, there's money to be made, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like it's going to consolidate a lot of power upwards even more, which is kind of frustrating. But I mean, I think maybe from that, there'll be more small presses that push back against that. I don't know. That's a hard question. I mean, it's not, there's a lot of like cool indie presses out there that do good work, and I hope they can keep doing it.
Do you like books? And the reason I ask that question, the physical book, or do you use both mediums, the digital and the paper itself?
I mostly just read the books. Yeah, I got a ton of books.
Somehow it does not surprise me.
Yeah. My girlfriend's moving in, and we're like, remodeling the house and moving a bunch of stuff around, and there's just a room full of books. And she's like, we gotta, maybe think about which ones are your favorite. And she's right, because I just have a ton of books.
Right.
But and I'm always like, well, what if I need to like make, create a class about Russian science fiction? I'm gonna need all this.
So you're giving her the what ifs then?
Yeah, it's a problem. I got
it's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, I got books that I will 100% never read and won't throw away, because what if I need it and don't have it?
Yeah. I used to have a buddy who said he'd keep his library the way it was, and I said, "Have you read most of those?" He goes, "About half." I said, "Well," he goes, "You don't understand." He goes, "Just having them up there makes me feel smarter." And he said it with a deadpan face, and I started laughing, and he's like, "What are you laughing about? That's the truth." I said, "Okay, I'm not going to push back on that. That is what it is."
Yeah, I'm like, well, what if my kid wants to read one or something?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you do you use Kindle? Do you use any electronic mediums at all?
No, I mean, I'm not like some people have strong anti-Kindle views.
Right.
Like, it's like whatever you got to do to read it. It's, it's good. I think it helps make it more accessible to people.
Yeah, to me, the reading, the function of reading was such an integral part of my life that I kind of went kicking and screaming toward the digital platform. And now it's funny, I can have the hard copy, or I can have the digital, and be total stream of consciousness and just flux between the two of them. I could be out in the car in my backseat taking a half an hour after read. I could be at home on my phone watching it on, reading it on Kindle.
Yeah.
So it's been integrated, but I wasn't kicking and screaming. I mean, I'm definitely old school when it comes to the love of reading. Anyways, the paper was it for me.
Yeah, I like having the book for sure.
There's just something about it.
Yeah,
There's a connection with it. Back to nonfiction for a second. It seems like that it's not a big transition for you to go from fiction to nonfiction, but as you know, a lot of people struggle with that. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I don't know. I don't.
Is this style related?
I mean, I think it's just about finding something that's story worthy and, being able to write it in an engaging way. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people get stuck on I mean, for me, it's harder. I struggle with, not being able to embellish, and I think some people struggle with having to make it up. Mm-hmm. Going from nonfiction to fiction of not. I don't know. I mean, I think it's it's like a different puzzle to figure out for me. What I really love about fiction is being immersed in a fake world, even if it's just I'm writing a short story and I have this, being able to create that and
escapism possibly.
Yeah, I think in the creation, some of it is like that, especially in the initial drafting of it. That's what I love about it, is mm-hmm. being able to just, check out and create something, and then the work comes, and and then that's something totally different, but it's also enjoyable in a way of being able to go in and cut, and for me it's usually just cutting superlative mm-hmm. shit out of the work and crafting it into a better piece, and with nonfiction it's how do I arrange these real things in a way that is most interesting and is gonna have a natural arc to it. What do I leave out? I mean, there's certainly a question of honesty, and not misrepresenting anything on purpose mm-hmm. or trying to lie to fill some kind of agenda or whatever, and just being able to arrange it in the right way. It's different than having to create it and then arrange it, so it's somewhat easier. But if there's if there's something that's missing, how much liberty is there to take to finish the story right? Yeah.
But coming from to me, what would seem hard is you're coming from a fictional standpoint, and then mm-hmm. to make a right turn like that all of a sudden and go to a work of nonfiction where there really can't be any embellishment. It's really how you frame the story, but the mm-hmm. story, the facts of the story are the facts, right?
Yeah. Just so there's constraints, and I mean, in some ways that's easier to be able to work within those constraints, though, because it's
less creativity.
I mean, I think it's just a different kind of creativity, right? Because you got to make it interesting, but you can't tell an outright falsehood. So mm-hmm. it's how do you do that? It's a different kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's also it's a fun challenge, and it's also a horrible, painful challenge to have to deal with. But depending on the day, I guess. Mm-hmm. But figuring it out is still, super rewarding. So I mean, I think the best thing I can do with the particular story I'm telling is just to to be as honest as I can to the story and to what that was like for me, right? Mm-hmm. To just tell the events and all this bad shit that happened to me and that I was trying to shield my kid from, and to have it represent that in a real way, and
Right.
to not like, defame my daughter's late mother, really, but to present it, her as like a sympathetic person who was just fucking sick and
Right.
died from it.
Right.
It's like, it's hard.
Do you worry at all about, or do you spend any time worrying at all about people in your sphere and beyond your sphere once a work comes out that they take it personally, or they'll try to read more into something that really was put there, or do you just not worry about that?
I try not to. Like, I'm not. To be like perfectly frank, like I'm gonna write this memoir about my daughter's mom, but I'm not gonna publish it unless I get money. Like
No,
I know that's
understood.
crass, and it's not like might not be like I don't know. But if I'm gonna like put that shit like out in the world, like I need to be able to be like, yeah, to tell my daughter like, yeah, I did this, but we got money from it, and now we have some security. So I don't know, maybe that's fucked up, and maybe I'm selling out like the pain of my child, but I will have at least a high price tag.
Yeah.
And hopefully somebody thinks it's a good enough story that they want to pay me for it.
What writers talk about being compelled to write, and when they're asked by people, whether it's an interview they're doing for Fat Gathering or just discussions, when they're asked, well, I'll tell you, but don't put it in the book. Usually most of them can't promise that because they're compelled. If they feel it, they're going to write it, and that's their decision, and fuck the world. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I'm going to write it, and it's going to be like it's going to be honest, and it's not going to be like tempered in any way.
Right.
And it'll either be like something I get a decent advance for, or it will have just been like a therapy exercise for me to write it, which it'll be good for me to write anyway.
Therapeutic?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not usually one of those like writers is therapy kind of people, but there was some pretty traumatic shit that happened, when my daughter's mother was in an active heroin addiction, and like, it's just fucking, the worst kind of like worry and anxiety on me. I was someone I've been sober for 15 years, and haven't gone through like, I never shot dope, thank God, but haven't gone through some like similar shit.
Right.
When in my 20s, and then having to like deal with that with a kid in the mix is just it's fucking terrifying.
Talk about heroin, just your thoughts of it now compared to years ago. Are you
God.
making any progress with this at all?
I
As a
don't know.
society? You making any progress?
I think like until there's I know you said you don't like to talk about politics, but I think
Talk about anything you want.
I think
As long as you're not a politician, my friend, I have no
yeah.
problem going down that road. That's all.
I'm not. But I think like it's a healthcare issue, and I think like universal healthcare is something that will, allow people to seek treatment for that without it, being a fucking crime and an excuse to throw people in jail, right? I don't know. I think a lot of lip service gets paid to it, and I don't think there's really been a lot of progress on it. I think for a while there, everybody was talking about, all the fentanyl and everybody that was ODing, and then I guess something else kind of took over that.
Yeah.
But,
The reason I ask, and you probably don't know this, is I lost my only sibling to heroin in '96, and I mentally kind of shut down at that moment, and I did not pay attention to anything beyond that. For 5 or 7 years, I just didn't want to think about it. So, I kind of reawakened to society on that issue, 2004, 2005 maybe, and I was amazed at how bad. Not that it probably wasn't bad in '96. It just I was shocked that that's what took him. And then in 2004, 2005, realizing, wow, this is a fucking epidemic.
Yeah, and it takes like
That was 15 years ago.
Right. It takes Tom Petty and Prince dying for people to give a shit, right? It's been killing people for a long time.
Right. Right.
I don't know, and it's like you see people go like I have seen people go either like turn like hard like Law and Order like when it affects them personally, or like hard the other way of like we need to really rethink the entire way that we talk about drug addiction and how it affects people and families and shit. So I don't know. It's fucking hard, and I understand people that feel both ways.
Yeah,
and that's something I try to touch on a little bit in Clean Time is like how it affects Ronald Reagan's family.
Right.
It's like the one brother's like, well, who the fuck made you smoke crack, you piece of shit? Like, and on the other hand, there's some other characters that are, it's like you get on painkillers. And then you can't get any more painkillers, or OxyContin's too expensive, but you can get a bag of dope for $20 or whatever. So,
my experience is very similar to what you just mentioned. Like I didn't have these long, drawn out circumstances where I was being ultra critical of my sibling or my brother, but when he passed, the logic part of my brain and being very lucky that I never needed to go down that road. Emotionally, that I didn't need that because it could have been me. Absolutely. My point is, that logic part of my brain was like, how the fuck why would you do this?
Right.
And then over time, thinking about it and really how fragile and just a little difference between the two of us, and he went this way and I went this way, but the difference between that decision was very, very small. Once you realize that, I think the humility will get to you. My overall point is that people trying to understand an addict, as you know, is difficult, especially coming from a logical brain. And I think as most folks that don't use or have had lives that, luckily for them, have not pushed them in a direction to use, it is a hard thing to grasp.
Yeah, 100%.
It is a hard. But these are the same people that think nothing of going home and drinking 7 beers in front of the TV, or drinking a fifth of whiskey over a weekend.
Right.
And it's still the process of numbing yourself out. And that's where it got, and I had to look inward for myself that, hey, I got my own vices. Is this really, in the essence of it, being it's a different medium, it still was numbing myself, just to a different degree and probably a little more controllable. But, it was humbling for me.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like, and that's something else that, draws me to the content. It's like there's not like an easy answer, about how, it's like I can think about my daughter's mom and be like, why would you like start shooting dope again when you have a fucking 2-year-old at home? Why would you do that? But like, I don't think she was in any kind of a good place, like,
right.
I don't know. It's
right.
It's more complicated than that. And it's hard to like get that across, sometimes.
And I was never one to be on the legalization bandwagon ever until about the last 4 or 5 years, and really critically thinking about it, having some good discussions with people, and looking at the total amount of deaths, period. We just can't continue to have this happen, and we're not. And obviously, what we're trying isn't working. And what's your thoughts on? I mean, pot's an easy one. That's an easy one. But when you talk about a harder drug, do you have any feelings about that either way?
I mean, I think if you make weed legal, that helps and can help with harder drugs too, because like you're not going to buy weed from some guy who maybe also has other drugs. You're going to buy it from the fucking store, right? So I think that can help. I mean, I think people are gonna shoot dope regardless, and if it's just like I think there's a way to like try to help people get clean too. I think it's like that's the best idea, is to treat it like a healthcare issue, and to
had we done that 30 years ago, probably wouldn't be in the same circumstance now.
Fucking Reagan and his I guess
Just Say No.
Nixon, yeah, war on drugs, just say no. Hugs, not drugs. I don't know if I'm articulating this all like great, but like what, I just think treating it like a health problem is the way to go. And if you do decriminalize it, and like, there's been studies about needle exchanges being effective and shit like that, in other countries.
Right.
It's just, I think it's hard, especially as Americans, for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, like, why are we just letting people, why would we just let people shoot heroin? It's bad for you, and it should be illegal. But, again, like, that's not going to make people stop doing it. And maybe, like what has war on drugs got us? Like, just like you're saying, it's gotten us nothing. It's gotten us mass incarceration and, a lot of fucking dead people. Like, it didn't.
That's exactly what it's gotten. Ben, that's exactly what it's gotten us. And I've come like 180, because I can tell you I was very anti-drug, militant almost for a good amount of years. But then you realize, especially being touched by it, you've been touched by it obviously way more personally than I have. But I will tell you that it's the same analogy a parent will tell a child when a child's trying to do something that's so ridiculously not working, but they keep doing it.
Yeah.
As a parent, you want to guide that child to make a different choice and do something different to get to the goal desired. Well, as a society, we keep doing the same damn thing over and over and over again for decades.
Yeah.
And even somebody that doesn't even believe in it would have to look at it logically and say, this is insanity. We keep doing the same thing with the same results. We need to do something different.
Yeah.
Just on that premise alone, it's worth consideration.
Right. I mean, I don't know. It's like, but then there's like the fucking prison lobbyists and shit, who like want to fill up their jails and get money. And there's pharmaceutical companies that want to, in rehabs. There's a lot of shady fucking rehabs. There's, also good ones, but it's an industry. This whole industry is built up around like drugs being illegal, and it's.
Is there any money in helping the drug addict, though? Probably not, and I think that's the problem.
Yeah, not really. I mean, because if they get clean, then they don't need to go to rehab, and they don't wind up in jail, and then,
But the biggest joke to me, it's just to turn a little bit here, but the same premise, would you not agree, is when you hear an advertisement for sports gambling, because obviously that's the new thing in Southwestern Cape last couple of years, right? And at the end of the ad, they go, gambling problems, it's almost like you nullify, to me, you just nullify the whole thing again. I mean,
right. That's funny.
Yeah, I'll get alcohol warnings, right? But you brought up the best one earlier, the drug commercials.
Yeah.
And when they say the benefits of their particular drug, they spend the equal amount of time listing all the potential things that could possibly go wrong with you, including death.
Right.
If it wasn't so funny and so ridiculous, it'd be sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely both. Funny, sad kind of thing with the drug companies. It's a fucking mess, and it's like so hard to like, peel it all back and get to the point of where everything went wrong with it. That it just, it seems like radical ideas to try to like implement just like normal common sense shit of how to deal with addiction and healthcare in general, I think.
The legalization question is so funny to me, though, because I had a amazing conversation a year or two ago from a gentleman who articulated much better than I possibly could, where he believed that everything should be legal. Any kind of numb or mind altering substances should. And he gave a very pretty passionate speech for it, but I think it's a horrifying proposition to the average citizen.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that's been like, drilled into people for years. Like, we were talking about like Nixon and Reagan earlier. That was the whole like the Law and Order fucking platform. It was like increasing like penalties for weed and crack and everything. It's like, yeah, it's tough to like deprogram in that way, because it's just been drilled into everybody from every angle for so long.
Right. Let me ask you this: did ever in your life did you ever write when you were high?
Nothing good, you know, like.
There's an honest answer.
Yeah, I mean, some people can,
Yeah.
but I couldn't.
Musicians lament about how wonderful it is. That's the reason why I'm asking from a writing standpoint.
Yeah, and some writers can. I mean, I don't like a lot of fucking drug authors, really. But some people can, some can't. I never did. Like,
Right.
I mean, I was a really big drinker, so like I was in it for the fucking alcohol, not for anything else. So that was that was all that mattered, right?
I get it. Because I always talk about direct correlations, at least from my optics, between
Sure.
like musicians and writers. There's so much to it because you all meet in the middle somewhere on the lyrical content because it's a creative a similarity, and of course they go off with the music side of it, and you go deeper into the story. But being that they're both very creative, talk a little bit about what you've seen in your lifetime about if downloading that really hurt that industry in 99, 2000, was that similar effect in your industry? Because I would imagine the hardcore reader or fan who wasn't really that much attracted to the paper could probably go out and find any piece of work they possibly want and steal it online through downloading. Do you folks see that kind of problem at all?
I mean, I'm sure. I think there's some like fucking stupid Twitter argument about this with like some like the library or something. There's a whole bunch of like free online books or something at one point, and
Well, Google had that in the beginning.
Yeah,
Wasn't
yeah.
it Google Books or something in the very beginning, and all the classics were available for free? I think.
yeah, and
How
like,
they put it.
public domain stuff, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I would rather somebody bought it, but I'd rather they read it than not, I guess. You know what I mean? I don't.
Do you feel that you're being stolen from, though? If it's obtained that way, do you even give that any thought?
If they like stole it and read it, that's one thing. But I guess if they stole it and then tried to like sell it or something, or like, I don't know, maybe that would be different. It's I don't think I'm like big time enough to have that really put a dent in me. If there's like a bootleg clean time operation going on, like I'm kind of flattered, and it's
You never know, my friend.
yeah. It's where'd you get your copy? I mean, it's probably only fucking me out of like $30 or something. I don't.
Still $30, right?
Yeah, that's true.
To
Yeah,
trip to Subway.
right. I don't know. It's like not to give like a weak like non-answer, but I can see like both arguments having
Yeah.
some validity
Sure.
based on like the scope and shit. I mean,
Well, it's same thing in music. I mean, so for my generation, the musicians that are still around today are just angry as all hell about downloading because those ASCAP checks just dried away.
yeah,
The younger artists, though, that grew up in it, they don't know any better. So the environment that they play in right now and that they work in and create in has kind of always been that way. So they don't know what the quote-unquote good old days was.
yeah. I mean, I still have like hundreds and hundreds of CDs, some of which I probably have a couple like Napster specials in there from like the dorm days with the high-speed internet. I mean, I don't know. Like Spotify doesn't exactly like pay the
Right.
musicians either.
Good point.
So
What is streaming anymore, right?
I mean, it's like, was it worse when like I never did personally, but should I, is it worse for somebody to like take it for personal use or to have it be on this platform that only benefits the people running the platform? So, And are those the only two options? Probably not, but people don't really buy CDs anymore. I haven't bought a CD in a long time, and I'm like jealous of my kid because it's like
They still make them, don't they?
I don't know. You know, the amount of money that I spent on music is just it's gross.
Yeah.
And my daughter doesn't spend as much. But, you know, I also like for every like illegal, you know, Grateful Dead bootlegs were not necessarily illegal. They're pretty,
the band authorizes
yeah.
They're one of the few.
Right. But like, you know, I go to see live shows and shit whenever I can. That's been the thing that I've missed most about during the pandemic, has not been able to go see music. Right.
Back to before you get out of here, I definitely want to make sure I ask this one question, because a lot of folks will listen. I've been journaling my whole life, so writing is second nature to me. But always having that doubt that anything that I'm writing could even be remotely entertaining to somebody or interesting to somebody. If someone writes a book, talk about the process today for a first-time author to get published, how hard that is, and what not only the obstacles, but what pathways do you think are there, and how do folks go about it?
I mean, my experience has been that it's both easier to get published, but harder to maybe like get like a big publisher. I don't know. I queried a ton of agents and like hundreds of agents as best I could that, you know, represented the same kind of work that I was doing, you know, clean time wise.
Right.
So like I queried the agents. Some of them wanted to see like 50 or 100 pages. Most of them didn't. And then, you know, I had a list and I like tiered the like small presses, you know, based on reputation, mostly, you know, and asking other people's experience who had you know, published with them before, whether they were good to work with and shit. So, you know, I got a ton of spreadsheets and sent out a ton of emails, and then it just took a long time because it's like, you know, I didn't want to send it to an independent press before I heard back from an agent, right? So kind of going top to bottom there. I mean, I got lucky. I mean, I will make no money off of this book, but I got lucky that I found a good press that had a good editor and made, you know, I think the book I'm proud of the book, and I'm happy with where it wound up. But it's like you know, if you want to think about the hourly, like I've probably
you probably don't want to think about the hourly.
Not at all. You know, the years of investment in it. But I would say the biggest thing would be once you finish the book that you're gonna try to get published is just immediately start on a new project so that you're focused on the creative process and not the fucking business side of it.
Consistently, yeah. And do the business in the background.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just do your research and then try to get as much money as you can, you know, not to sound too capitalistic about it, but it's like, it's okay to make money from art, you know, like
absolutely.
It's also labor, and we deserve to be be paid for it.
Absolutely right. And what's a reading? Because in your business, you hear that a lot. I'm going for a reading tonight. So to the lay person, what's a reading?
It's probably some like, you know, stilted impression of like a, you know, bad beat poet, like from So I Married an Axe Murderer. That
I remember that movie.
Yeah. Mike Myers. That was a good flick.
That's back to the 90s, I think. Right?
Yeah, mid 90s. It's solid. You know, boom from Mike Myers SNL days.
Yeah.
I mean, readings are great, and I've definitely missed those too. You know, it's been important. One of the best things about Pittsburgh, and one of the reasons I've stuck around out here for so long, is because of the literary community and the support I have out here. And you know, so I will say the best advice I got is never go over the time limit that you're given, because no one will care if you stop short, but nobody wants to hear you read for half an hour when everybody else reads for 12 minutes.
Got it. Got it.
Usually there's like a cheese plate and, beer, bottled water.
Mm-hmm. I know all that.
Yeah.
Who generally holds them?
White Whale does a lot in Bloomfield near me. They put them on. Usually it's up to the author to like hustle and set it up themselves, which is another hat that a lot of us have to wear. Maybe you have a publicist that does it, or I don't know. I don't have a publicist, but if if you're doing well enough, maybe you have some people, or you just get asked by an organization.
Right.
Like City of Asylum does a bunch of readings. I don't know. It's like the same way you wind up on a podcast. Somebody's like, "Hey, I see you have a book. Do you want to come read it?" And let's try to sell some copies. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, it did. It did answer the question. It led me to this. So you also have a collection of essays. Essays can become a book, right? Collections of essays become chapters of books. Generally, it can form their way into a novel, or else you can write a book of just separate individual essays. Correct?
Yeah, for sure. The anthology I'm editing is all other people's work,
right?
But yeah, sure, definitely. I think there's a way to like structure it, or revise it into some kind of. It depends on what you want to do with it, but.
Could you say when you wrote Clean Time, did any part of that process actually create you to write in essay form, though? In terms of like, is that how you created chapters or sections of the book?
Some of them I'd write. Some parts I wrote as like standalone pieces of short fiction, and then they still kind of work. Some of the chapters are like that, and that helped because I could feel good about myself for publishing them while I was waiting for the the manuscript to get picked up. And that helps too if you can get something picked up by get your work seen.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah. Well, all I know is one thing for sure. I'm enjoying the hell out of this book, buddy.
Sweet. That makes me happy, man. It's been a while since I've been asked to talk about the book. It's fucking great.
I'm glad you came in. Although he wore a Padres jersey when he came in.
Yeah. Well, it's Tony Gwin. It's my cousin.
Gwin. Yeah, it's funny. I was digging through pictures that I took of old Pirate games at Three River Stadium many, many, many years ago. I got some photos of Tony Gwin. I'm
That's
thinking,
awesome.
Well, how about that? It's just nuts.
Yeah.
That's how far back I go. But
he should have hit 400 the year of the
came close.
first lockout.
Yeah, he came close. Ben, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
it's a good time. Definitely come back and see me.
Yeah,
and
for sure. I will.
I'll be watching you, and I'll be reaching out to you again.
Awesome.
All right,
That's
thank
great.
you.
We'll talk baseball.
Yeah, I got that right. We did a little bit of that. We are out.
Yep.